Eagles. Eagles.
Welcome in, everybody, to a Football Friday edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. I'm your host, Zander Krause. That's my co-host, Johnny Mack, John McMullen. 15 days of training camp practice done and dusted. 2 joint practices with the Cleveland Browns done and dusted. Johnny Mack, how you doing on this Football Friday morning?
Doing well. Joint practice is over. We got a preseason game we got to get through, and then last week of training camp and the all-important third preseason game against the New York Football Jets at MetLife Stadium. Get out of there healthy, by the way.
No doubt about it. How many more practices do they have here, John? It can't be that many with 2 games.
3 more in training camp, so it'll be Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I have to double check that. When's the game? The game's on. You have to double check.
I think it's next Friday, the final game.
Yeah, then it might be. No, the game's this game's on Saturday, so they're all Sunday. Then it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday,
and then walk through Thursday, and then
walk
the game
through
Friday.
Thursday, game Friday. Yeah. So 3 more training camp practices, which is big because those are the only practices. Well, there's some spring practices, but that'll be Wednesday. Will be the last practice we get to see in its entirety, and then they go back to regular season mode, which we only get to watch the first few minutes of practice, individual stretching and some individual drills. So you really can't get a feel for, and that's when they do all the subterfuge and start adding a little chocolate into the vanilla. You know, you're not going to get butter pecan here, but maybe you'll get some more Neapolitan, the occasional.
A Neapolitan sounds too much. That you got 3 different flavors in Neapolitan. I don't think that's what we're getting here, John.
Well, they're all bland though.
Yeah, still good though. I mean,
vanilla is tremendous. You know, I'd still rather have vanilla than anything else. But
me too.
You know, it's very, very pedestrian. I think everybody would agree with that.
Well, I guess it's the base, right? It's the base. Almost everything starts from there, and you flavor the vanilla or you add something to the vanilla. I guess not chocolate, obviously, but I guess that's where the slogan comes from, is that vanilla is the base.
Yeah.
Certainly not the worst.
No, I would argue it's the best, and that's what the Eagles were last season. So, I'm not going to say I think people make way too much out of creativity and this and that and hook and ladders. And, believe me, if the Eagles did that yesterday, there'd be so much excitement. And you're not going to win football games running hook and ladders week to week. So you got to be careful what you wish for.
Yeah, no, I agree 100% with that. John, 15 days of practice down for this football team. How much has changed since the start of camp? We prepared for it all summer long. Now you come in, and I almost feel like, John, you got more questions than answers, specifically at the cornerback 2 spot. But everywhere else seems to be starting to take shape for the most part. But I thought we'd be a little further along in knowing some of those roles by this point. Is that fair to say? Where are you on that?
Yeah, I mean, I said it pretty consistently this week is, things are expanding when they should be contracting. So that to me is not a positive sign at certain positions, edge rusher, corner, even safety, with trying to get Makuba back into it. Things are expanding, midway through the month of August, and they should be contracting, and you should have a good feel of who would take most of these jobs. And really, you don't have that, especially, on the offense you do, but it's the only concern on offense is Landon Dickerson, will he be ready for week 1? And if he's not, he'll be ready early in the season. And how do you get through that? My thought is, Brett Toth has gotten the snaps. My thought is if Landon's unable to go, week 1, it'll be Darian Kennard, but he's got to finish that. He's got to prove he can handle reps on the left side. And we'll see how that shakes out. But, that's all you're talking about on the offense. I mean, Tyler Steen's I put up worst kept secret in camp and all, a bunch of fans go, I knew he was going to be there. I'm not talking. I'm saying the Eagles won't name him the starter. That's what I'm talking about. Everybody knows he's the starter. That's what I'm talking about. He's taking every damn first team rep at right guard. There are a couple, I think 2, where he might have been taking a leak or something. And Matt Pryor came in earlier in camp, but he's been there the entire time and done a solid job. Morrow's giving him fits, but Morrow gives everybody fits. And I think he did a good job against Cleveland, especially in the run stuff, which the Eagles are going to be a run heavy team again. So definitely he's more issues pass protection than run blocking. So, but if you're complaining about Tyler Steen, look around at the rest of the league and see.
I've gained a lot of optimism on Tyler. I mean, listening to Lane Johnson and just what I saw obviously is not much, and it's a preseason game, but I think he's one that's really showed maybe he's ready for the increased role as compared to Sidney might be in the lead for the job, but I haven't really seen anything to make me comfortable there. I mean, I think Steen has actually done some things this training camp.
Well, I think it's easier for most people to evaluate defensive backs than offensive linemen.
That's fair.
I still have concerns about Steen. He has struggled as a pass protector. And interior pressure is the quickest way to upset the quarterback. So still got to see how it works out. But, I do give Stoutland the benefit of the doubt, and he seems to think this is the way to go, and he hasn't wavered at all. So that to me is the biggest, check mark in his column. But, I think they also have good depth. And I've said if it turns into an Isaac Seumalo situation, and by that I mean when Isaac was first the starter, he got benched after 4 or 5 games because he didn't perform. And then he was able to bounce back and become a very good player eventually. Right. So I think he's there for week 1, and it's, if he plays well, he'll keep the job.
Yeah, we'll say Tyler Steen doing some good things. Obviously, a lot of questions at the cornerback spot. We'll continue to talk about them. John, before we get into some of the position battles, some of the things kind of we've talked about over and over again, but obviously we'll have to continue to talk about them until we get some clarity there. But I do want to talk about some second-year players, John. The second-year players are going to make a big impact on this team this year. I'm looking at 4 starters in week 1 that are second-year players: Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, Jalix Hunt, and Jeremiah Trotter Jr. You got also the additions of the wide receivers and Johnny Wilson and Aniyah Smith. Johnny Wilson's had a pretty nice training camp so far, but a lot of young guys, John, that are really going to be asked to play a bigger role this year. What have you seen from those second-year guys? Sometimes coming back for year 2, you can come back with more confidence and more swagger, or you can go into that famous sophomore slump that people call it. What are you seeing from those guys? Because we need a big addition from them this year.
Yeah, so well, it's half and half. Certainly not worried about Quinyon and Cooper, even though Q finally proved he was a human being against Cleveland. Jerry Jeudy got him a couple times, but that's not that big of a deal. He's had a tremendous summer overall. And then you have the second half, the guys, the later picks, Jalix Hunt, 3rd rounder, Jeremiah Trotter, day 3 pick. I've been very impressed with how steady Trotter is from day to day. Right. And he's been sort of the anchor with Zach Bond being out. And I think he's handled it well. So I see positives. A little concerned about Jalix. Just a weird goings on over the past couple of days where they've given him reps on the left side as the backup to Nolan Smith, and all of a sudden Uche and Ojulari and Obo are rotating at right end. So kind of want to see what's up with that. Maybe it's just cross training. I think it's just cross training, but you would think you would want to see Jalix Hunt against the Browns first teamers. I would think
100%. I mean, he sat out the first preseason game, which was a clear sign of, okay, this is the guy we're relying on as much as we originally thought they were.
Yeah, and that's another part of it. Like if he's a deference guy in week 1, why isn't he getting first team reps against Cleveland? It's very strange.
So did he get any first team reps versus the Browns this week?
Not yesterday. Again, I flipped.
Right, you flipped. You saw offense.
Yeah.
You watched offense.
And I'll check with a couple guys. Not yesterday. He didn't get any.
Yeah, I don't see the meaning of that or the value of that.
And it was a shorter practice, so you didn't have as many reps. But yeah, I only saw him on the left side, so that's a little bit strange to me. But everybody keeps talking him up, and he's one of those guys. I would say, Morrow's the clear leader in the compliment parade. And then I would say Jalix would be number 2. But AJ convinced me Kaylee was going to be a good player. How'd that work out?
Yeah, right.
Well, it's not working out yet, but maybe it eventually does work out. But teammates are going to generally talk up especially in public, are going to talk up their teammates. So you do have to take a little bit of grain of salt with all that positive talk.
It's good. Trotter, I agree with you. Trotter has come in. John's had a pretty steady camp. You mentioned that, but it's tougher for him because I don't know. There's an old adage of if you play good enough, you stay on the field. They won't take you off the field. I don't know if that's the case with Trotter. It doesn't matter how good he plays, right? They're gonna when someone else is ready, they're probably gonna go to Jahad Campbell or Nakobe Dean or whoever it might be. I mean, at least that's what it feels like to me. So he's only a second-year player, but what do you think of that Trotter spot? And could he be a guy that earns more playing time than expected coming into the year?
Yeah, well, I think he's going to be a week 1 starter. Not 100% because, again, they drafted Jihad where they drafted him for a reason. But he certainly, in my estimation, earned it. As I mentioned, he's been running the defense with Zach Bond missing most of camp. Doesn't seem overwhelmed. Doesn't make a lot of mistakes. Very, very TJ Edwards-ish. I think there's just a good football player, but people are going to pick it. Maybe he's not the best athlete out there compared to certainly Campbell. But I think he's done a good job. And you have time to wait for Campbell. You have time to work him in as a sub package player. To me, if and it's a big if Nakobe Dean gets back whenever he gets back, that's the real test because Vic loves Nakobe. But to me, that's more health related because if he's healthy, but that's an injury where somebody had just talked about somebody else who tore his patellar tendon on the Chargers, and they tweeted out. I retweeted this the other day. I'd never seen the study. Guys who have that injury return.
Yeah, I saw this.
55% of the time. That ain't 55% of the time.
Terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dr. Chow mentioned that on the interview he did this week with Dan Silly on the National Football Show, because Dan, after talking about obviously Landon Dickerson, he did ask him some questions on Nakobe Dean, and that definitely made me raise my eyebrows.
Yeah. So, and incrementally, that study was done over like a 30-year period. Through that entire time, there's been significant advancements. And I'm sure if you limited that to the last 10 years, that number goes up. But still, it's a very, very serious injury. So you have to, that's a wait and see thing.
We'll see what ends up happening there, John, with these guys. Are you concerned about the Jalen Hunt thing you mentioned, or it's just something to monitor at this point?
Well, it's just something to monitor at this point. I mean, I'm concerned about the group as a whole, but I think he'll be the starter because
I just don't know how he goes from deference player in preseason game 1 to not getting a first team rep in the really the most significant period to actually get first team reps for players who aren't going to play in the preseason.
Well, I should and I should mention he did mix in. I should clarify. He did mix in on the first team. I leapt in to spell Nolan.
Okay.
So he did get not a lot, but when Nolan came out, he would be with the first team. But he didn't take any first team reps on the right side, which struck me as strange because that's going to be his position. And I do think it is going to be his position, because I just don't think the other guys are good enough.
Right.
So they're going to lean towards the guy that they think has the significant upside. So that one to me is more just something to monitor than, Ringo's who seems to have, gotten, I don't want to say benching in practice, but somebody said that yesterday.
Well, you started with it, John. It wasn't them that started that.
Well, did I say benching? That
you said it's a soft.
Well, you didn't get first and second team
benching. Yeah, you did say benching though.
All right. Well, that's my.
Well, you just said I don't know if you can get benched in practice, but
yeah,
he didn't get any reps.
Yeah, it wasn't a positive sign by any stretch for Kaylee.
That's brutal for Ringo. No first team reps in joint practice, which is again an important period of time before the season starts.
Yeah, and that's the first day he didn't get any. So 14 days.
So day one, we all come in expecting Ringo to go and win the job. Day one, he's splitting first team reps, and then by day 15, he's gotten 0 first. He's going the wrong way. All right, this is an objective.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I said it's expanding when it should be contracting, and that happened when they made the trade for Bennett, Ja'Cory Bennett. You knew they were going to try to get him up to speed and give him an opportunity. And that's been the case. And I'm sure they'll both play in the preseason game. They're guys who have to play. So still time to work it out. But if Vic is being completely honest, I'm sure he would tell you that, yeah, you would hope somebody would have seized the job, and nobody seized the job. That's why Ja'Cory Bennett's here.
Let's go into that position now, Johnny Mac. We talked about some of the second-year players coming in. We'll talk about some of the rookies coming in, but I do want to talk about that cornerback position. We'll keep it right there on Kelee Ringo just for a second. What are you seeing from him in camp, John? You keep saying that he doesn't close out plays. Well, what does he have to do to get to a point where Vic is more comfortable? I mean, if he's there, that's half the battle. I mean, maybe more than that. I mean, you got, being there is a hard thing to do. If he's there, but he's just not closing, is it fundamentals? Is it just polish on the game? Is it something that you think can be learned, or is it something that probably can't be learned? Some things are harder to develop over time. What are you seeing with Ringo that's gotten him after 15 practices now completely off the field?
Well, I think, I'll defer to Vic there, because I asked him the question, and he, specifically about the chase play from the preseason game. And he wasn't upset with him about giving up the reception, because, that might be the best receiver in football. He was upset that he didn't tackle him and understand and realize where he was on the field and who he was playing against. So situational awareness, which I'm sure, he's told and hammered time and time, because all this team does is practice situations. So you're kind of hammered with that stuff. And if you don't do it, and he said, those are all things you got to process and factor in a millisecond. It ain't, shit happens fast out there, especially when it's Jamar Chase. But, you have to almost be in the mindset of, all right, this is who I'm playing against. You know, he's up. You know, you use the sideline as leverage, and all that kind of stuff. You got to process right away, and he didn't do it, and that was sort of. And he said, I expect him to learn from that, and he got beat in practice with a very similar play, and that's when he got soft B word.
Right, soft benched.
Because that was Vic's exact quote was, I expect him to learn from that, and I expect him to improve from that. And if you're making the same mistakes over and over again, that's the easiest way to lose confidence from Vic. You can make mistakes, but don't do the same thing over and over again.
Right.
So I think that's what's going on there. But the other guys are not clearly, I don't think Adoree Jackson is the type of player he wants out there, but he's also clearly.
Before we get to them, though, wait, Ringo didn't play any first team reps in the second joint practice. And just to recap the first joint practice, he didn't have a very good day in that first joint practice, did he?
No, he didn't. And that was, that's part of it as well. Yeah. So, I mean,
it just feels like everything you don't want to hear, you're hearing right now with him.
Yeah. But he was getting first team reps in the first practice. So, and he actually got the first rep. So he closed the gap in the all important first rep category. He was actually the starter in practice. And then, the first team yesterday was Q and Adoree, and the second team was Jacorian Bennett and Mac McWilliams going back outside. Yeah. And then eventually, which Eli Ricks as well, eventually Ringo and Eli mixed in with the second team for at least one period that I saw. So, could be wanting to light a fire under him, say, look, this is not going well. I'm sure he's heard that behind the scenes, but
yeah, last minute effort to light a fire. I'm not buying into that. Talk about Adoree Jackson, John. Probably at this point, the front runner for the position. I guess the positive of him is that he brings experience and maybe a little bit more consistency. What are you seeing from Adoree Jackson? And if he is the guy, if he does end up being the guy, how big of a problem is that going to be for the Eagles, or not a problem?
I think Vic will be able to mask it to a certain degree. I don't think it's going to be a huge issue because he is a smart player, is a savvy player. That's why I'd start him week one.
Right. Knows how to play, as you always say.
Yeah. Not what he once was, but he'll give up some catches, but he'll understand situations better, certainly. So, but there's probably a limited upside to that at this point. So that factors in as well. I mean, I think they want to get Bennett up to speed, but because he's obviously got talent. But then again, so does Ringo. He can run. They want somebody who can run. He's really fast. But he's only been here for a week and thrown into the deep end of the pool, but he has not looked good.
No.
And he didn't play much. He played more than Ringo in Vegas, but he didn't play much. And he's got that shoulder issue as well.
Yeah. Have you seen his missed tackle percentage too?
Yeah, he's not a tackler. That's another Ringo. The one thing Ringo could do is run support, so that might factor into it.
Yeah.
By no means would I put the period on Keely Ringo. I do think they're trying to wake him up and shake him. He's a very quiet guy, very reserved guy. I do think they're trying to shake him up. Like when I talk about what happened at practice yesterday, like Mac McWilliams isn't going to be the backup outside corner on this team. It's going to be Ringo. If he doesn't win the starting job, it might be a Jackson, a Bennett, vice versa. It's going to be that guy. And, even Eli Ricks, if they decide deeper down the depth chart what they want, because the concern with Eli is obviously he's not fast for a typical NFL corner.
Have they lined any of these three, Akili, Adoree, Jakorian? Have they? Basically, what I'm asking is, which one of them is most equipped to handle Quinyon traveling with the best receiver? In other words, which one of them is most equipped to handle both sides?
Adoree. Yeah.
It's going to be Adoree then.
Yeah. Well, I don't think they're going to travel as much as people think. But Adoree's better equipped because he knows how to play.
Right.
He's not going to get discombobulated. But I don't think they're going to travel nearly as much. They've traveled quite a bit in practice. But again, Christian Parker, I explained this for people that listened a couple days ago. He explained they're only going to do it with stagnant offenses. Well, there's not too many offenses as stagnant as the Eagles. The Eagles play generally, they're going to have an X and a Z and a slot guy, and he's not going to move into the slot. So if you start talking about CD Lamb week 1 or whenever they play Jefferson, guys who move into the slot, he's not going to travel with them because you're not going to upset that apple cart. So it's got to be teams that really have a receiver that only plays X or Z and he can move side to side. Then they might do it. But most of the big time receivers, most move into the slot. And when that happens, they're not going to travel. So the idea of the traveling quarterback that follows a receiver no matter where he goes, it's not what the Eagles are going to do.
Right. We'll see how it all shakes out. This position battle is, in my opinion, getting ugly. And we have seen no evidence, right, John, that they want Cooper DeJean on the – I keep getting that comment, guys, it's time to put Cooper on the outside. I happen to agree with those comments. All right. I happen to agree. If what I'm hearing, all right, is how it's going to play out, I'm ready to put Coop on the outside at least sometimes. It doesn't seem like that's what they're looking to do, though.
Well, there's 3 more training camp practices. I guess they could be waiting till we get kicked out to try it. Look, if it gets desperate, desperate things require desperate measures. I do think Vic thinks he can do it. But I think he thinks he's a better safety and can have a more impact on the game as a safety.
Right.
And that he's not taken one snap as an outside corner in training camp.
Well, yeah, which tells you the answer. They're not, as of now, unless desperation calls. They're not. That's not the plan.
Yeah. Yes. Correct.
Brutal. Jakorian Bennett, Adoree Jackson, meh. Keely Ringo trending downward. We got a problem at CB2, everybody. John, let's keep rolling. Safety position. Makuba got some reps again. He's back on the football field. Sidney Brown's kind of the leader in that clubhouse. What are you feeling? What's your confidence level in that position? That's one of the spots where I think, we talked about coming into camp, and I think after 15 days, you feel like Sidney's going to be the starter, but I can't necessarily say he's inspired a whole lot of confidence. Maybe I just have to see it on the football field in a game setting. What have you seen from him through camp?
Yeah, I think he's been fine. I think Sidney is as advertised. Very good going downhill. Very good in short areas. Very physical. And then you question how he can hold up in space. So I would say as advertised. I could see this being a piecemeal type thing. It's already going to be a piecemeal type thing because they're going to play Cooper at safety and base, which, of course, is my pet peeve because base they play 160 times in the season last year.
Yeah.
So why is it called?
Well, that
base,
changed
though?
this year.
No, because that has to do if you're playing 11 on offense, they're not going to be in base.
Exactly.
So that has to do with the personnel on the offensive side. And most teams just don't play. Some teams, but so you'll see little uptick in games here or there when the Eagles are in base. But there will be games when they might be in their base scheme 5 times. That's how little some teams play those personnel groupings. So it'll vary a little bit from week to week, but it won't be a ton of snaps. So they're already piecemealing it from that. But I think they could go even farther and say, well, 20 to 20, maybe, especially as you get into the season, maybe it's Drew Makuba because he's the coverage guy who can play in space. And then if you're inside the 20s, either backed up or in the red zone, here comes Sydney. I could see that develop.
Yeah, right.
That's not necessarily what I would want, and certainly what Vic would want. But and do you want to have that much movement? Do you have three guys playing next to Reed Blankenship? So I would say it's a long shot, but if you want to get, Makuba's a better coverage player and Sydney's a better, more physical box run support. If you want to utilize each of them the best way, maybe that's the way to go about it.
Going to have some interesting tests early, man. I think if I'm not mistaken, John, Rams run 11 personnel, maybe more than any team in the league.
They're always in 11. Yeah,
always. I mean, they're like I think almost 90% maybe in 11. But I'd have to look up what the state is on that. But I know they run a lot of 11 personnel. They got some tough tests earlier in the year, man. These guys are going to be put in sink or swim situations. It's going to be very interesting to see how they prevail or how they manage being thrown into the fire, for lack of a better term. But we will see what happens with those guys. John, you talked about the edge rushing room a little bit to start the show today. We talked about Jalix Hunt. I think he's making progress, or we thought at least he was. Early in camp, he was talked about having a pretty good camp. Yesterday, a little bit of an interesting report there. But what are you seeing from Uche, Ojulari, and all the secondary guys? How many edge rushers do you think they're going to end up keeping? And who is going to get consistent playing time this year? It doesn't look like that is set in stone either.
No, I think for Obo to make the roster, he's got to be one of the top four. So I think he's kind of fighting with Uche and Ojulari. And, again, there's going to be two players that how he uses the IR to manipulate the roster, and it's going to be with two veteran players. And Obo might be one of those players who was like, all right, we're going to start you on the practice squad. If we need you, we're going to elevate you on game day. And when they use up the three elevations, they'll put them on the roster. And by that point, usually somebody's got a sprained ankle. It becomes easier. So I think he's fighting for but he's got to be in the top four to make the initial 53. Powell Ryland hasn't done much, but I think they might keep him around. Just as Howie's MO doesn't want to expose him to waivers where he can make a backroom deal with Obo. So look at it from that perspective. Who doesn't have to go through waivers? Patrick Johnson as well could be in that category. Patrick's boy, he's valuable, but I don't know unless he keeps 6. I don't know how he can make the roster. Same thing that happened last year, because he's not. It's nice as your 5th or 6th edge rusher, but his main impact will be on special teams, and can even back up as an all-ball linebacker. So it'd be all this versatility. You would think it would help him, but I just think the numbers game is too difficult. Ojulari and Uche is like, I think they're going to keep them both, but not excited by that.
No, it doesn't seem like they are either. But I mean, look, you said it when they did it, John. You said it months ago. These are Temu signings. You literally said that the day it happened, and we've been talking about it all offseason.
Well, because they have somewhat big names, I think people got excited about it. And if you see it day after day, it's it's not. You're not having the next Zach Baun. You're not. They're not those guys. But can they handle rotational roles? Maybe one can, maybe one can't. But yeah, lots in the bucket of Nolan Smith and Jalen Hunt. I mean, a lot. So I was thinking about this way: of all the defensive players they've lost, all right, where's it going the worst? Well, to me, Slay. That's
Right.
the worst.
Yep.
Then Sweat.
Do you throw Isaiah into that? And Isaiah Rodgers into that because he
Well,
played so well
I'm
when
not,
Clay was
simply
healthy.
because that's the same position and it's sort of layered. So you can put those two names together, Slay,
Yeah.
because
Okay.
they're
Because Clay did miss some pretty significant snaps, and Isaiah was really good in his absence.
yeah. And so, but all those are the same guys. So
Right.
it's Bennett, Jackson, Ringo. So that's not. So if you want to put them together, as cornerback in that case, not so worried about, Q was taking over the CB1 role that Slay had. That's fine. But then you're talking about, if you want to look at it that way, you're talking about replacing Q as the
Yeah, right. It's
CB2.
I get what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. And Isaiah. So that's number one to me. Josh is number 2. CJ's number 3. N'Kobe's number 4. And then Milton's number 5, which is crazy.
Yeah,
Milton
it
had the
is.
best
That's
year.
has that changed for you? That's definitely changed for you.
No, it hasn't changed.
No?
No, because I've said pretty consistently, just the only pushback I had to you was I think Mora is going to be a good player, but I just think people are expecting,
Right.
insane levels of production. I think he's just going to make that next step of being a really good player. And I've always had the most confidence of him, of that group, from day one. Maybe Ringo. I had, because of the AJ stuff, which I've been wrong. So he was in the mix with Ringo. I think those were the two guys that I thought potentially would step forward and have good seasons. And then I'm much more concerned with Jalix than most people. Trotter has calmed me down a little bit at linebacker, and safety. Yeah, safety's still a big concern as well. Not in the base, but they only play that
Yeah.
160, 170 times last year.
Yeah. All right. So Sweat, obviously number 2 on that list. I agree with your list. I think your list is spot on. We'll see. We will see. We will see, Johnny Mac. John Fields. Look, I got a lot of confidence in this football team. I remain very optimistic that they have a lot of great players that will help this team be better than most. This feels like a lot of holes right now. For this team, and when you go back and look to repeat, you're gonna have to make up for some of this. So we'll see what they're able to do. Let's get to our first commercial break. I want to thank everybody for being here this morning. All right, Kimberly checks in with a super chat. Appreciate all the super chats. In hour number 2, we'll take a bunch of chats. So if you guys have any questions for John, have any things you want to talk about through the first 15 days, drop them in the chat below. Kimberly says, Vic runs a very cerebral defense. Not all will fit. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, his defense is pretty advanced in the modern NFL. So this is one of the tougher defenses. Maybe you could argue Flores is a little bit tougher, but that's about it. And that's only because he does some really wacky shit. But yeah, it's very complicated. And that's why you see why all the copycats, and Vic has had more copycats than anybody else. And you don't have to go too far back with Sean Desai. Playing the same scheme. It didn't look like the same scheme, but they're playing the same scheme. So there's a lot of teaching, a lot of responsibility, especially on the back 7. The front doesn't change much, to be honest. They play more odd man fronts. Lane was talking about this. So it was good to get, from his perspective, it was good to get Jim in, who plays, more 4-man fronts, wide 9 type looks, which makes it easier for the offensive line to get their angles and surface blocks than Vic's does. And that's the whole reason why Vic does it, to try to limit those offensive line angles. But front play doesn't change much. You know, you're playing nose, 1 technique, 2 technique, 3, 4, 4-eye, 7, 9. That doesn't change from team to team. But the back 7, they got a lot of communication to deal with. And that's why you see so many blown coverages in this defense. And what was the most impressive part about last season? Very few.
Right. John, do you think there's any unexpected moves that could come on the defense, like moving certain players at different spots? Like, for example, maybe McWilliams can play the slot. You put Cooper at safety, and then, well, no, that wouldn't work unless the other one of the corners wins. But could Makuba play the slot? Is Ringo at it? I get a lot of comments that Ringo's out of position. They think he's a safety. I don't know if they're right. I don't know what.
Well, that's all about his size and
right, his size.
Yeah, and he can run.
What about Makuba in the slot, though? I can kind of see that.
Yeah, I mean, he played the slot at Clemson before he went to Texas. But you know that he, as a young guy, and I just talked about one of the big differences between college though and pros is, and the biggest thing about slot play and the pros is the run fits. I don't think he projects well there. Certainly early. Like if you see Cooper, how physical Cooper is in those run fits. And Vic also likes to run blitz the slot more than people don't think about run blitzes that much, but he likes to run blitz from the slot if he's got that type of player, and he did with Cooper. I don't think Makuba projects there early in his career, at least, until he gets a little bit stronger.
Yeah, we'll see. A lot of holes to fill right now for this Philadelphia Eagles defense, and we don't have much time to do it. Only 3 training camp practices left, 2 preseason games left, and then we're right there at the start of the season. Dirty Air, member for 11 months. Thank you, brother, for being a member. He says, put Darius Cooper at CB2. Yeah, I know, right? Like, good Lord.
Yeah, well, yeah. Darius has been a good story. And he is legitimately pushing for a roster spot. So, but yeah, he's not going to play. He's a little too short and stocky to play corner.
Yeah, no, I think he was just messing. But I hope Cooper makes the team. I think he's a good guy to keep around, man. I think John Dotson's done after this year. You know what I mean? So I'm not saying he's
most likely.
3, but I think you want to keep guys around that could play that role, you know, if they're not going to draft somebody next year.
Yeah, well, they'll try to get him. I think he's a guy who I think will get through waivers, so he'll be here. It's just a matter of, you know, will he be on the initial 53 or will he be on the practice squad? Because remember, a lot of people get concerned about waivers. You know, other teams have been working with their own young players for the spring and summer. They don't want to bring in somebody that they don't know on the back end of the roster who they haven't worked with and waste a roster spot. So that's why waivers tend to get way overblown. You know, the best team in the Eagles might be in the conversation, but they might lose 2-3 players. Might not. But that's one of those overblown things every year.
Yeah. Good stuff, Johnny Mac. Appreciate everybody for being here this morning. Don't forget to hit that like button. We'll take our first commercial break. We'll come back, continue to kick around where this football team is right now after 15 days of training camp, and kind of look forward. We got the preseason game tomorrow. It's tomorrow at 1 o'clock Eastern, or 1 p.m. Eastern time. So we'll cover that a little bit. Get ready for that game. Stay tuned, everybody. We'll be right back on Birds 365.
The following is a presentation of JAKIB Sports.
If you're a small business owner or you work for a company that loves the Birds, you need to react fast before we've used up our entire ticket allocation. And here's why. In celebration of JAKIB Media's new partnership with Savvy Seats, JAKIB Media will give you a pair of VIP tickets for any game on the 2025 schedule, home or away. And we'll give your company or your boss a 20-week media sponsorship package across the #1 digital network for Eagles coverage, JAKIB Sports. And that includes all of our game day coverage. Cost for your business or company? About $50 a week. Let's recap everything. 20-week sponsorship package on JAKIB Sports, including commercial spots, live reads, and liners. Inclusion in all of our game day coverage, including the soon-to-be-announced Green Zone, and a pair of tickets to the home opener or any game on the 2025 regular season schedule. Remember, that's home or away. If you're in Kansas City and you want to go to the game against the Chiefs, no problem. If you live in Florida and you want to go to the game in Tampa Bay at the end of September, no problem. Text Krause at 267-261-3428. That's 267-261-3428. And remember, do it quickly before this incredible gift is gone. JAKIB Sports and Savvy Seats put you right in the action with VIP seating, as we are proud to announce our partnership for the 2025 season with Savvy Seats. Text Krause right now at 267-261-3428. That's 267-261-3428. And pick your game today. If you own a company and you're not producing a podcast, you're missing out. The public consumes messaging when they're ready. Join the professional podcast network of companies and let JAKIB Media Partners put you in the podcast arena. Come to our professional studio, or we'll come to your place of business and professionally produce your company podcast. Call JAKIB Media right now at 267-261-3428. 267-261-3428.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Hey, we're back without Zander Krause. I had to check that. So I don't know where Zander is, but we will march on without him. Welcome back to Birds 365. Talking about the Eagles defense, and we have been talking about the Eagles defense because honestly, there's good reason for it in the fact that the offense is so structured and consistently, they're just locked in at every position. Even if you talk about Landon Dickerson and Xander's pop back in, even if you talk about Landon Dickerson, it's going to be Brett Toth or Darren Kennard if he's not able to play early in the season. By the way, he was there yesterday giving out beers to the Cleveland offensive line. Looks great, moving one day after surgery. Everybody's talking about how tough he is, and I've said it all the time. He's the toughest guy on the team, and football is a game for tough people, and he's the toughest one of them all. So wouldn't surprise me if he's there week one, and that's not even a concern at that point. And of course, Tyler Steen is locked down right guard. So the offense is set. Now, you could argue about how vanilla it is, and
that's what I was going to say.
And it is, but it was last year. And I always say it's more about execution than the other stuff. And the Eagles proved that tenfold last year. Look, you might know what's coming, inside zone, but if you can't stop it, it's how the Cowboys were with Emmitt Smith. Everybody knew what was coming. Cilio talks to Jimmy Johnson all the time. He's buddies with him. They had 3 damn running plays. Everybody knew what was coming. They couldn't stop it. So I think people get way too caught up in the creativity aspect of it, other than it's not the most aesthetic brand of football, but as long as the Eagles execute offensively, they're going to be fine. Defensively, there are more questions today after 15 training camp practices from my perspective than there were when we started this thing. And there were plenty of questions when we started it. So lot of shit will have to go right on the defensive side of the ball with some unproven players.
Yeah, no doubt. How's Jalen Hurts looked through camp so far, John? I mean, not much. You're not hearing too much, good or bad, about him. But I mean, you just started the show. I didn't hear the start of the segment. I apologize, not being in the chair. But talking about the offense, what's the QB1 update 15 days in?
Yeah, I thought he's been fine. I thought obviously nobody had a great pair of practices against Cleveland, certainly in the passing game. So that's going to impact him more, obviously, than the running game was fine. It was excellent, actually, in the first practice. So, yeah, last couple of days, you've seen some negative stuff, I assume, out there. Again, the context, especially yesterday, no Lane Johnson's resting, no Saquon Barkley resting. AJ's been out, and we know what happens to this offense when AJ's out. Landon's obviously out. So, those are 4 of your best players on the offensive side of the football. So, yeah, I mean, when Johnny Wilson's in there, Brett Toth, Matt Pryor, it's not as effective. I mean, that should be self-evident. So,
no, it is.
But I think overall, I think Jalen has had his strongest offseason.
He's definitely comfortable. You can hear the confidence coming through him, and he admitted to having some of that confidence after the Super Bowl.
Yeah, he did admit, again, compared it to like a promotion for normal people. So when you feel that sense of accomplishment, it gives you more confidence. So I think that's part of it. I think he's very comfortable with Kevin Patullo. That's part of it. I think he likes Scott Leffler a lot, who, maybe that was the biggest unknown, bringing in another new quarterbacks coach. He seems very willing to say positive things about Scott Leffler, which, Doug Nussmeier's a great guy. I didn't sense the same willingness to offer up the immediate platitudes, but that could be just me.
No, I don't think you're wrong. I don't think you're off base on that.
It seems that way to me, but he seems just I've used that word a lot. He seems very, very comfortable this year.
He does, no doubt about it. What's your thoughts on Patullo, his first training camp? I mean, you mentioned how vanilla it's been, and you're right. If they execute, it doesn't matter. Most teams can't really say that. This team can. But should there be some level of expectation, John, that Patullo adds something to the offense? I don't know. I mean,
I don't know. I feel we go through this every year. Every year, everybody says the same thing. We got to evolve. We got to keep growing. You can't just stand still. And every year they try, and every year they scale back to where they were. Now, last year was even more substantial because DeAndre Swift was turned into Saquon Barkley. So it became even more. But if you go all the way back to 2021, in season, the same thing happened when they got off to the poor start in Nick's first year as the coach. And then it was that Detroit game. It was the Vegas game and Detroit game where they just scaled back and said, all right, we're going to run the football. And I think a lot of people forget how good they were with Miles and DeAndre running the football. It just took off to another level when you had a Hall of Fame talent versus just a good running back. And they've done this every year of the Nick Sirianni era. They start and they say, we want to do this. We want to get the passing game. And then they scale back. And the same thing is happening this year. To me, it is what it is at this point.
Yeah, it is what it is. John, let's talk about some of the secondary spots on the team a little bit. Running back, too. You just mentioned the running back, obviously Saquon Barkley, but is A.J. Dillon or Will Shipley, has either one of them kind of looked like they're more worthy or have earned more running back, too? Or do you think it'll be kind of a rotation between the two guys? What do you see at that spot?
Yeah, I don't think rotation as much as layered is what I called it. Like on a normal game when Saquon is healthy and getting 20 plus touches, I think Will Shipley's going to be your curveball, your third down back, your Kenny
Okay.
Gainwell. Um, and then if they're closing out a game and they're ahead and they want to rest Saquon a little bit as they did last time, or he's banged up and he's got to miss a game and you need 20 touches, I think then it becomes AJ Dillon. So I think it's a little bit more layered this year, but they've both been impressive, lost in that. And Will's a really good receiver. So if they can get, him involved with all these splat passes, they might, they look ugly in camp, but they might turn into something. But yeah, I mean, that both look great the day one. It wasn't only Saquon, it was those guys as well. It was
Right.
just inside zone, inside, just pounding them. And they all three of them looked ready. So yeah, I'm pretty comfortable with the running back spot.
Any
And
chance?
Montrell Johnson is back, by the
Yeah,
way. He had missed. There's no chance that somebody's pushing those guys.
no.
No.
And they're going to keep what? 3, right? That's it. They're going to keep 3.
Yeah. Well, and they'll keep Ben as a fullback, Ben Van Sumeren.
Okay.
Which they're gonna do some things with a fullback, but we'll see how much. But they're gonna keep him. And then Montrell Johnson will likely be the guy on the practice squad. And if they keep 2, Keelan Robinson might stick around as well because he's got some kick return ability. But those top 3, the biggest concern coming in is AJ Dillon healthy, and he has looked healthy. So no more concerns from that standpoint.
Good stuff there in the running back too, John. We're going to get to kind of a projection of where it stands right now on the 53-man roster, but let's just keep rolling through a couple positions here. Wide receivers after the top 3. All right. I think Johnny Wilson's a lock. I think Anaya Smith, I guess, is a lock. Are they keeping 6? What do you think?
It depends on if Darius Cooper finishes the job, so to speak. They are trying him, giving him more opportunities as a kickoff returner, more opportunities to help on punt coverage to see if he can show value in that aspect, which I think could help him. Nick, I just wrote about it yesterday. Nick when I asked him about Johnny Wilson, he had an interesting comment that I thought people should hear, talking about Johnny Wilson in year 1, because, let's be honest, and you've heard it time, most people think, well, receiver, he couldn't catch the ball consistently. He should be on the team. And Nick said, basically, what he was able to do by doing his role, which is blocking, special teams coverage, he called him an example, and he said, obviously he got drafted as a wide receiver, but he contributed as a rookie in other ways, maybe not in the ways you expect when he was a receiver at Florida State, blah, blah, blah. And what that does, it buys you time to develop your other areas that are probably deficient early on. So he contributed in playing his role. He said, are you mastering your role, doing what's best for the football team, blah, blah, blah. That gives you time, and you're able to take that role and you have to excel at it. Then you have time to develop in other areas. I think that's what people don't understand about the back end of the roster. You got to contribute elsewhere. And for young players, that gives them time. And that's what happened with Johnny Wilson last year. And now he's and you're right, now he's a lock to make this team, barring injury. A lock. Anaya Smith, I put it similar way, him with punt returns, kickoff returns. 90%, I'd say, as he continues to develop the wide receiver part of his game. And then to me, it's up to Cooper to finish the job. And if he can become, but that might affect Anai Smith as well. If he's going to be the kickoff returner, and probably Will Shipley's going to be the kickoff returner. So this is all just thinking out loud. But, can you keep both of them? I don't know if you can. And I do think you can get Darius Cooper through waivers. I think you'll get him through waivers pretty easily.
Yeah, we'll see about that. About how many they keep there at that spot. Tight ends, 3, 2.
Yeah, well, I if they keep 3, it's going to be Kylan Granson. Sorry, JD, if you're listening. He's I think distanced himself from the back end group. There's some talk EJ Jenkins because he's probably got a higher upside, but I always go back to last year. They only kept 2, and it wouldn't shock me if they only keep 2 again. If they really want to keep an extra player at another position,
yeah,
and then do the whole thing with putting maybe Granson and Bryant on the practice squad to start. But if they're going to keep 3, it's Goddard, Calcaterra, and Kylan Granson pretty clearly, I would say.
We'll see, but we'll see how it all shakes out with that spot. How many offensive linemen are they going to keep at this point? Last year they
that's they got a boatload of offensive linemen that probably belong in the NFL as players. And to me, Kendall Lamb is the guy you have to keep an eye on from the perspective of, he could be the swing tackle, the backup left tackle, or he could be cut. And again, he's one of those veteran guys that doesn't have to go through waivers, so you can manipulate things like they did with Nick Gates last year. How many of these young guys do they want to keep? Well, they definitely want to keep Miles Hinton. I mean, he's a lock. Cameron Williams, bigger project, but if you're here, that's an indication Jeff Stoutland wants to work with you. And then even Holland Pierce is an undrafted kid he seems to like. So how many of these young guys do you want to keep? And Drew Kendall, I don't even bring up because he's a lock. So, if you talk about 4 young guys, most NFL teams only keep 8. Most only keep 9. The Eagles could keep 11. It wouldn't shock me at all.
What they keep last year? 10.
I'd have to double check, but they kept obviously Kennard, they kept Fred Johnson, they kept who was the right tackle last year? Yeah, I have to look back. Everything runs congruently. Well, Darren Kennard was right tackle, right guard. Now this year, Trevor Keegan also obviously as a young guy. So they always keep a lot of offensive linemen because they have more good offensive linemen than other teams. This year they're going to have to cut some people that they probably don't want to cut and hope they get through to the practice squad. But it wouldn't shock me at all. They'll probably keep 10. Wouldn't shock me at all if they keep 11 to start. Now they'll manipulate from there. Again, people get way too caught up in the initial 53. That's exactly what it is. Then they'll quickly start manipulating from there. But they want to keep as many of those young guys, and Brett Toth we didn't even talk about. They want to. So think about all the names I just mentioned. I know. So, all right, I'm going to pick up the roster. So you have Juergens is 1, Steen is 2. I'm just going there. These are in order of number. Toth is 3, Lane is 4, Kendall is 5, Mylott is 6, Dickerson is 7, Kennard is 8, Miles Hinton is 9, Matt Pryor's 10, right there.
Yep.
And then I didn't even mention the Trevor Keegans of the world, the Cam Williams of the world, the Holland Pierces of the world. It's insane. And I want to continue to work with them all. But that's why I think Kendall Lamb is a guy who, even though he belongs on the team from a meritocracy standpoint, might not make the team.
Going to be interesting to see what they do at that spot. John, the biggest pushback you received there, all right, is, and I actually agree with this pushback, Darius Cooper getting through waivers.
Oh, yeah. You guys can push it back all day. I tried to explain it. This happens every year.
Yeah, well, because there's obviously so many people, but I don't know, man. I feel like that kid would get picked up.
Well, nobody picked him up in the spring. The Eagles got him for
yeah, but that circumstance is different than the circumstance of making viable plays in an NFL environment versus playing at Carleton State.
Well, again, where in the NFL is he going to play somewhere? Is he going to be in the top 3 or 4 receivers? How many teams are that weak at wide receiver where he's going to be in that top 4? So if he's not in the top 4, which I think if you're being honest, he's not in the top 4 of very many teams, then you have to contribute on special teams. And again, all these teams have young players like Darius Cooper who they've been working with and they want to continue to work with. Now, there's some teams that don't have confidence in themselves, like Carolina, who pick up a lot of people on waivers. So I'm not saying it's impossible, but the odds are very much against it.
Well, what's the purpose for keeping Anais Smith over him? Only because you drafted him?
Well, Anais is better. I mean, I wouldn't. Now, when you talk about Anais, Anais is better football player.
But Anais Smith had 2 years to show us something. He hasn't showed us close to what Darius Cooper has in one opportunity to show us it. I'm not saying that means he's a better player. I'm just saying,
well, again,
why don't we see anything from Anais Smith? We haven't seen shit in 2 years.
Well, you just saw a 45-yard punt return.
Yeah, all right, a punt return. I'm getting that.
Which is pretty good. But again, there's so much stuff there's so much context to stuff, and Aaron Moorhead was talking to us the other week, and I've said it a million times. He was not healthy last year. He did not deserve to win the football team, to make the football team. He was not healthy. They discovered a stress fracture in the shin at the combine medicals. That's the reason he was a 5th round pick and not a 3rd or 4th round pick. So he fell a little bit in the draft. He was a very explosive player at Texas A&M. They're saying he's showing that same kind. He's healthy now. He's showing that same kind of explosion. Remember, he's getting reps with the first team because DeMonte was out and AJ's been out. So he's getting a shitload of reps with the first team. Darius has generally been working with the 3rd team when he's making plays in camp. And then he's elevated, and he's done a great job. And he elevated. Now he's getting reps with the 2nd team. Even had a rep with the 1st team here and there. Very few, but noticeable. He's doing a great job. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying the reality of the situation is he's not like way too many people conflate 3rd team reps with 1st team reps.
Yeah, but I remember when you talked about, Eli Ricks has an interception in a preseason game and how he keeps him on the roster because he doesn't get the waivers after that.
Yeah,
I'm putting Darius Cooper in a similar category.
Now,
I'm not saying that he's done enough. I'm just saying people look for guys that did something. He did something.
I was going to get to that. Now, you're right. And that's the reason Eli Ricks, who didn't even have that good of a training camp as a rookie, that's the reason how he kept him.
Right.
Because he really was a 4-string quarterback. He got a pick 6 against a 4-string quarterback in Baltimore. And that was the year, and I mentioned Carolina, that was the year that Carolina was picking up every stinking quarterback. They picked up like 4 cornerbacks off waivers because they had nothing at that particular position. But as a whole, cornerback is a position where teams are always looking. always looking for someone. At least the really bad teams. Wide receiver, this is one of the issues we had with the Doug Peterson era, when we would say, why can't the Eagles find a wide receiver? Everybody's got wide receivers. They grow on trees because that's all they do in high school football now is play 7-on-7 camps. And I remember I tell a story. I was down at Milton Williams and Zach McPherson's youth camp, and they had this high school football sort of all-star game with 4 local high schools. One of them was Roman Catholic. These kids are unbelievable. There's wide receivers grow on trees in this league. Now, I'm not talking like AJ Brown and Jamar Chase and they're all over the place. So I'm saying, yes, to your point on Eli Ricks, cornerback is a much different animal than wide receiver. I'm just telling you, people want to work with their own people. They don't want to go out and give, especially an undrafted guy at a position where is populated throughout the league, a roster spot over, people that have in-house. I wouldn't, I'm not saying it's 100%, but I would bet very strongly that if
How
the
much does
Eagles,
it factor, though? Go ahead, finish up. Sorry.
I would bet very strongly if the Eagles do waive Darius Cooper, and that's not to say he can't make the team because he's had a great camp and he finishes, they might keep 6. But if he does not make the team, I feel very comfortable that the Eagles will get him back on the practice squad because he will clear waivers. That's my prediction. If he doesn't, I'll be here the next day. I'll be here to take my punishment.
How much does it factor in, though, that John, that he did play at Tarleton State, so there wasn't significant tape on him for teams to kind of make a move for him when he was an undrafted free agent versus now, versus another guy who might have went undrafted but did play at an SEC school or did play at a Power 5 school.
Well, there's no doubt.
There's
no doubt if you play at Texas A&M and you're a star at Texas A&M, it carries more weight than to use the Anais Smith category. Yeah, I've already said, I think, the NFL usually finds you. In the case of Cooper, they obviously knew who he was. I was surprised he didn't, and I did criticize him because he didn't get an invite to the combine, which I thought was ridiculous. So yeah, he's much better than even the Eagles expected. So he deserves a lot of credit. I'm just the waiver stuff, and I say this every year. You could replay, you could go back. How long have we been doing this show?
I know.
I mean,
you do.
Every year it's the same thing. There's like 40 guys are going to, that's it. There's 32 teams. There's going to be 40 to 50 guys picked on waivers. And I'm highballing it. And every year it's like, you're going to lose this guy. You're going to lose that guy. And I've said it way back to Eli. The Eagles would have probably gotten Eli Ricks back. You never know. Can't prove it. But they got all
right. So if you had to make a prediction today, are they keeping Darius Cooper as the 6th wide receiver, or are they waiving him in the first 53 cut?
I think I would lean towards waiving because I think they want to go heavy on the offensive line, and you don't really need a 6th guy, unless you have many injuries. He's not going to play. So right now. But again, and things can change. He could show up. He's going to get a lot of playing time on when is the game? Saturday. If he has a 3-touchdown game, yeah, maybe that changes it. But if he has a 3-touchdown game, he probably makes the team. But I feel very comfortable he's going to be here, and they're going to be able to continue to work with him. They want him here. They want to continue working with him. It's just a matter of, are they going to keep 6 on the 53 versus get him on the practice squad? And that's up to him and how he can show his value in the other areas, as Nick talked about with Johnny Wilson last year.
We'll see what they end up doing out there. I am John. You know me. I've said it. I want Darius Cooper on this football team. Man, I haven't seen enough from Anais Smith to.
Well, get used to it. They like Johnny and Anais.
Johnny, I think, has actually done some good things. I mean, I think Johnny's made some considerable strides forward and has shown.
Anais Smith. The Anais Smith question is not about Darius Cooper. It's about Avery Williams.
Right, returning. How about Darius? Did Darius Cooper show anything when they put him at returning?
Yeah, he's a decent kick returner, but Avery Williams, at least in the past, has been a very good kick returner. At the NFL level, Will Shipley's going to be the other returner, and then so to me, it's Anais Smith versus Avery Williams. Not only for kick return, punt return, but also manufactured touch player, which the Eagles don't use anyway. So I don't know why they care about it. But that's the debate, not Anais Smith versus Darius Cooper.
We'll see how it shakes out. Johnny Mac, let's get to a super chat here from Master Chief. I just made a super chat goal, only 5 of them. So, guys, if you have any questions, drop them in the chat below. Super chats go right to the top. We appreciate the support of the channel. Yesterday, I announced some more. The giveaways are coming back. We got more shirts. I'm getting more jerseys in. So, thanks to our members. Carson Deniston becomes a member after asking about it last night. Carson, thank you, brother. Appreciate you for becoming a member today. Master Chief says, what are they going to do if Q Mitchell goes down? They're going to suck.
Go cry in the corner. That would be a tough loss. But he's a young guy. He's almost crossed over into that category where, the stars category that you can't replace the A.J. Browns of the world, the Saquon Barkleys, the Lane Johnsons. You can't replace him. You just try to persevere. He's crossing over into that category. So, if they lose him for an extended period, you're not going to be as good. You try to persevere. You don't have a back. You don't just replace players like that. Nobody. You're muted.
You don't. That's like asking if AJ Brown goes down. Yeah, you're fucked, dude. You're fucked. That's what
that was the great Tom. One of my favorite quotes of all time. It's from Tom Moore, the old offensive coordinator. A lot of places, but most notably with the Colts, with Peyton Manning. And somebody, I think it was at the Super Bowl one year, because it was a goofy quote. Jim Sorgi was the backup at the time, I believe, and somebody asked him, hey, what about practice? How many, Peyton takes all quarterback ones in the season take 90+% of the reps. And somebody asked him, what do you prepare, Jim Sorgi? Do you, how does that work? And Tom Moore looked at the guy and just went, and old football guy. So he goes by numbers. He said, if 18 gets hurt, we're fucked, and we don't practice fucked.
Right.
Greatest quote ever. One of the greatest quotes. You don't practice fucked.
Yeah, right. Q Mitchell goes down. It's not going to be pretty, Master Chief. How many corners you think they'll keep?
Well, I think they'll go heavy at corner because Cooper can play safety. So, if you think of it from that standpoint, right. And Cooper's obviously listed as a corner by most people, as a slot corner. So, Mitchell's going to be there. Cooper's going to be there. Bennett's going to be there. Ringo's going to be there. McWilliams is going to be there. Those are the 5 blocks. And I don't even know. Small chance they could trade Ringo if he continues to lose the job. Adoree, as you noticed, I didn't put in there. But he's like 95% would be the 6th guy. And then, Eli Ricks would probably be the odd man out. But they'll probably keep 10 defensive backs. But the fact that Cooper can play both helps. in the versatility aspect, and helps. They don't have as many safeties to populate the roster, but I could see them. If there's an edge rusher, and I can't give you a name, I know everybody wants a name, but if there's an edge rusher who's they think has some upside, maybe they liked him in the draft a couple years ago and hasn't really panned out on his rookie contract somewhere else, Las Vegas, for instance, like Jacorian Bennett.
Right.
They might try to trade for that player for that type of player on the edge. But that's a big if.
Yeah. We'll see what they end up doing here, Johnny Mac. With all this roster skullduggery, they're going to have to go through. Everybody goes through it. They got to get down to 53, and that's a lot of names. The initial 53, I like that you call it. It's not the final 53, but we will see how many guys that they try and kind of battle with. How many guys do you think are on that bubble? Like, I'd put Cooper on the bubble. I don't know if you would. I'd put some of those corners on the bubble. I mean, I don't know. How many guys would you – obviously the offensive lineman on the bubble. How many guys are right on the bubble?
Well, I'd have to go to. I mean, obviously, quarterback Thompson, Robinson, and McCord.
Oh, yeah. What are they going to do there?
It depends on how he thinks he can get through waiver. Unfortunately, both of those guys are subject to waivers. Kyle McCord hasn't done anything over the past 2 weeks. So if it were a meritocracy, Dorian Thompson-Robinson is going to win. Now, again, Saturday it might show up and Kyle might play well because they're both going to play a lot. And Thompson-Robinson may play poorly, and that could shift the dynamic. And again, that's a position, obviously, even higher profile than cornerback. If you play well, like if Dorian plays well, they might not be able to get him through waivers. So those guys are obviously on the bubble. Running back, nobody, because it's so set. Wide receiver, we just talked about that a lot with Cooper. Marshall and Cooks have kind of fallen behind because of injuries, unfortunately. Tight end, we talked about, I think, Kylan Granson's third. Offensive line, we talked about a boatload of those guys.
Tons of them.
Defensive front people, obviously, Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, Moro Jomo, Ty Robinson are the locks. They'll probably keep 5, and that's between Byron Young and Gabe Hall, I would think. So they're legit bubble players. Edge is going to be interesting because they're not that good. And I mentioned, I think Obo's got to be in the top 4 to make the team, and he very well might, because he might be better than both Uche and Azeez Ojulari. And then Powell Ryland hasn't done much as a rookie, but how he likes to keep his rookies. We just mentioned corner, so we've gone through it all. Yeah. They're pretty set. There's not a lot of, to me, again, the biggest question is how we going to manipulate it?
Exactly.
Because he's going to use 2 veterans to keep 2 young players with the new rules. It used to be if you were placed on injured reserve before the initial 53-man roster, you were out for the season. So you had to keep injured players on the initial 53 and then make moves after. Now you can put 2 players on injured reserve designated to return at the cut down to 53, which has made it far easier for GMs to make some of these decisions. And I think sucks blatantly, because I think it takes some of the strategy away from the game. But it's easier for them. So he'll use 2 veteran players to keep 2 young players that probably aren't ready to play right now. Could be Darius Cooper.
Yeah.
He'll use 2 veteran players to keep spots for those guys that they don't want to risk losing on waivers.
I think they're going to keep Darius Cooper, but we'll see what they end up doing with it, Johnny Mac. We will see how he ends up doing. It is an interesting thing. You remember last year they they kind of did this. And then the Giants picked up Patrick Johnson. And then later in the year, it ended up working out, obviously. But when we only had the 3-man rush, we always said, hey, it'd be nice to have Patrick Johnson.
Well, Patrick was a little later. That he made the team originally. He was
Right.
on the initial 53. That was like after week 1. And then they needed a spot, and they had to risk, but he was still had to go through waivers, and the Giants picked him up. And they were top of the, top 5, certainly, on the waiver wire. So the Eagles kind of knew they were going to lose him, but sometimes you can't manipulate it. You can't keep everybody you want to keep and work with. And
Right.
you have to risk a player. And it's usually a guy who, Patrick's a really good player to have, really versatile, really bad, but there is a limited upside. So you're going to keep, like how he said that this offseason when he was talking about day 3 on the unscripted program the Birds run, when he had the passion meeting, he told the guys, if you were listening, I want starters, I want ceiling guys. I can find backups, anywhere. They have that kind of confidence, so they always are always going to lean towards the guys who have a ceiling more than somebody like Patrick Johnson, who's a great utility guy.
Yep. We'll see how it shakes out. Johnny Mac coming up here. John, preseason game number 2 coming up tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern time. Do you expect to see Tanner McKee and the guys who played in preseason game number 1 tomorrow? What do you think they're going to do in that game?
I don't think we are going to see Tanner McKee. No inside information on that, but, the joint practices shipped it, and plenty of say it was all first and second team reps, no third team reps. They did one developmental period at the end of the first practice for about 4 or 5 minutes, but everything else was first and second team. So I think he got his work in the practices. So I think it's going to be a DTR Kyle McCord game.
I don't want that. I think it's better. I think it makes sense for the team. But I mean,
nobody wants it. But I think you asked me the question, what I think is going to happen.
You're gonna do a show tomorrow. Come on, give me some McKay, man. Give me some freaking McKay going out there and slicing and dicing his way through the.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to see that. Maybe he gets a series or 2. That's the best I can hope for. It's like an entrenched starter, old school preseason. Maybe he gets 1 drive. I think that's the best you can hope for.
Yeah, we'll see. We will see what ends up happening in that game as we roll along. Then we'll have preseason game number 3. It's going to be brutal. It's going to be brutal. If preseason game 2 is DTR, this is also not good for my boy Darius Cooper, John. This is the main reason I want Tanner McKee to play, is because I know Darius Cooper needs him.
Yeah, well, that's part of it. You're, as a wide receiver, you're at the mercy of the vehicle getting you the football, in a lot of ways. So yeah, I mean, there's a reason why third team snaps are always pretty ugly in NFL camps. Usually it's because the offensive line can't play and the quarterback can't play. And that's a bad formula. If you don't have an offensive line or a quarterback, the Eagles are deeper than everybody on the offensive line. And I think DTR's had a pretty good camp overall. I think he belongs in this league. And by that, I mean, most teams keep 3 quarterbacks. Some teams will use the practice squad, but they have 3. And he's one of the 96 best quarterbacks in the world. So he belongs in the league.
Right.
Kyle, I thought did, but he's not had a good camp.
Yeah, I'm upset about that, man. Kyle McCord, St. Joe's prep kid, played college ball at Ohio State, and then ended up at Syracuse, where he had a historic season. I think it's just taken him a little second to kind of figure it out here. But you only have so much time in the NFL to figure it out.
Yeah, and I think the same thing. I think the Eagles want to work with him, so I think they have a more difficult decision. And I think in a lot of ways, it's probably desirous for them if he plays poorly in the preseason. Because then you can get them through waivers and just keep them on the practice squad from that perspective.
Right. Right. Good stuff there, John. Prince Swayze checks in. Hit the like button. Texas boy, go ho. We got a Cowboy infiltrator in the chat. We always do. Texas boy stirring it up this morning, and everybody's paddling back. Prince, thanks for the $5 super chat, brother. Appreciate you doing it this morning. Thanks to Carson, who became a member today. Shout out to you, Carson. I think we're getting up there in members. I want to thank everybody for being for coming back on for another year here on JAKIB. We got plenty of shit to give away, so we're going to do all that. I appreciate everybody for being here. Hit that like button. We'll take a commercial break, and we'll be right back to close out this Football Friday edition before a big preseason game number 2 tomorrow. All right, Eagles-Browns. We're not even going to get to see Shador tomorrow now, are we? Right, we're gonna see who's it going to be.
No, he got hurt. I think it's going to be heavy dose of Dylan Gabriel, who, boy, I don't know. He might not have the arm strength. And they picked up another quarterback, Tyler Huntley. So I think it's going to be Dylan Gabriel, Tyler Huntley.
Tyler Huntley could actually be a problem in a preseason game. He's got super good athleticism.
Yeah. He didn't get any reps.
No, he didn't get any reps, but he's one of those guys who maybe can make something happen when a play doesn't work, you know?
Oh, yeah. And that's usually who wins. So the Browns might win that game because, yeah, he's probably going to be more equipped to do some things. So I wouldn't get upset by that, by the way, if the Browns win the game.
Right.
I'm sure some people will, but.
Yeah. JD3 says, it's hard to believe we're going into week 1 living on a prayer at CB2. I heard Mason Graham cried on the field getting dominated by Tyler Snead.
Yeah, I don't know about the crying aspect, but the Eagles did kind of manhandle the inside of Cleveland's defensive front on day one. A ton of inside zone, as I mentioned, that was really effective. Tyler was a big part of that. Yeah, I wasn't impressed by Mason Graham. Usually when you see a top 5 pick, you get it right away, at least from a physical standpoint. I didn't get that from him. So, but we'll see.
Is it fair to say we're going into week 1 living on a prayer at CB2?
Yeah, I think that's I'm higher on Adoree Jackson than I think Vic Fangio is. I think you'll be fine with Adoree Jackson. I really do. Guy knows how to play. Limited upside, not going to be an all-pro or anything, but it's going to be in the right positions more often than not. I think I like their insurance policy at cornerback better than some of the other positions. And I said that when the Temu in the offseason, I said, of all the Temu signings, I thought Adoree Jackson was the best insurance policy. That hasn't changed in my mind.
Right.
The problem is you want to pay into the insurance because you want the safety of it, but you don't necessarily want to use it. And the Eagles look like they're going to have to use it.
Yeah. Not ideal to have Adoree Jackson, I don't think, but I hear what you're saying, John, in terms of an insurance policy, but he's obviously been bouncing around a lot. Hasn't quite lived up to the expectation. I know he signed that big deal with the Giants a couple years back, but we'll see how it all shakes out. We got about 20 minutes left to go. We'll take a commercial break. When we come back, the final touches on a Football Friday and 15 days of training camp. Done and dusted. We'll be right back in 3 minutes.
The following is a presentation of JAKIB Sports.
If you're a small business owner or you work for a company that loves the birds, you need to react fast before we've used up our entire ticket allocation. And here's why. In celebration of JAKIB Media's new partnership with Savvy Seats, JAKIB Media will give you a pair of VIP tickets for any game on the 2025 schedule, home or away. And we'll give your company or your boss a 20-week media sponsorship package across the #1 digital network for Eagles coverage, JAKIB Sports. And that includes all of our game day coverage. Cost for your business or company? How about $50 a week? Let's recap everything. 20-week sponsorship package on JAKIB Sports, including commercial spots, live reads, and liners. Inclusion in all of our game day coverage, including the soon-to-be-announced Green Zone, and a pair of tickets to the home opener or any game on the 2025 regular season schedule. Remember, that's home or away. If you're in Kansas City and you want to go to the game against the Chiefs, no problem. If you live in Florida and you want to go to the game in Tampa Bay at the end of September, no problem. Text Krause at 267-261-3428. That's 267-261-3428. And remember, do it quickly before this incredible gift is gone. JAKIB Sports and Savvy Seats put you right in the action with VIP seating, as we are proud to announce our partnership for the 2025 season with Savvy Seats. Text Krause right now at 267-261-3428. That's 267-261-3428. And pick your game today. If you own a company and you're not producing a podcast, you're missing out. The public consumes messaging when they're ready. Join the professional podcast network of companies and let JAKIB Media Partners put you in the podcast arena. Come to our professional studio, or we'll come to your place of business and professionally produce your company podcast. Call JAKIB Media right now at 267-261-3428. 267-261-3428.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome back in, everybody, to a Football Friday edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. I'm your host, Zander Krause. That's my co-host, Johnny Mac, John McMullen. Give us follows on X at JF McMullen for Johnny Mac and at Zander Krause for me. Appreciate everybody for being here today. John, 15 practices down. 15 practices down. Does it feel like this team is put too much emphasis on the future as opposed to 2025 right now for you?
Yeah, I've talked about that in the past. I do sense a not as much urgency as there has been at times in the past when they were
Which might not be the wrong move.
No, it might not be the wrong move at all. In fact, I don't disagree with most of their moves in the offseason. But, again, if the Eagles lost the Super Bowl instead of won, and I've said this, instead of winning the Super Bowl, so same exact season, except they lost the Super Bowl, there'd be a big-time edge rusher here. And they lost the same guys on that. So they lost Sweat, they traded Hupp, they lost BG to retirement. They'd have a big-time edge rusher here if they lost the Super Bowl. And they'd be in the same financial position. So they would have somebody here. But they won, and they said, you know what? We can be patient. So, yeah, I think and that's human nature more than a strategy. I think it's, similar to what Jalen surprisingly said about feeling, more competent because he won the Super Bowl. There's a big difference between winning the Super Bowl and losing the Super Bowl. As you know, just how people react. Like I say, talk all the time with Jalen. He played better in the first Super Bowl when he lost than the second Super Bowl. Played great in both, but he was better in the one he lost. Big difference. People don't look at it that way.
Yeah. Howie spoke, John, yesterday on an interview. I forget who it was with. Bussin' with the Boys, I think it was, with Will Compton and Taylor Luan, I think. He had some interesting comments. You could tell that the Jefferson pick still weighs on Howie. And I think a lot of fans were happy to hear that. It's still
I'm glad you brought that. I was supposed to. I'm glad you brought that up. I was going to bring that up. To me, in a lot of ways, the Jefferson pick, non-pick, points out the strengths of the Eagles, which I think he got to in the context. Like if you take Jefferson, and he mentioned, it is his, probably his biggest regret because you mentioned that's already a Hall of Fame
Hall of Fame player. Yep.
If you take Jefferson, he's going to be really good and you're going to be really satisfied. And they made a huge mistake. And what did they do? They drafted Devontae Smith in the top 10. And then the year after that, they traded another first-round pick and gave $100 million to A.J. Brown. That butterfly effect doesn't happen if you have Justin Jefferson.
Exactly.
It just doesn't. You're probably you're saying, we have the best receiver in football. We're going to, we can cobble together wide receiver too. We can take a guy in the second round or the third round. So they pivot and make up for it because everybody makes mistakes. That's baked into this. They made a mistake last year with Bryce Huff. They react quicker and they tend to correct mistakes quicker than most teams. So, I think a lot of ways when in a vacuum, that's Howie's biggest mistake in the draft. And that has shifted his whole, I've talked about this, that has shifted his whole mindset to the point of, he's like, I'm getting the shit, so I'm going to pick the players now. That's his mentality. I'm responsible. So he's going to listen to Vic Fangio. He's going to listen to Nick Sirianni, but he's going to make the final decision because he's going to get the shit for it. And that scarred him, that pick. But they also recovered from that pick brilliantly.
Yeah.
So, and I think if you look at it strictly in a vacuum, it's an awful decision. But I think if you look at the bigger picture, it shows you why the Eagles are the Eagles.
Yeah, because they correct the right way. He actually did talk about as well, John, the A.J. Brown trade, which was just awesome to listen to him talk about the back end of that, where you make the deal. I think he said like 8 or 9 in the morning. They had the trade worked out, the compensation they were going to send for A.J. Brown, but they didn't have the contract worked out, and he's like, I'm not doing it unless I get a deal done, which I don't know, most GMs, I don't know if they all do that, but Howie obviously thinking way ahead, doesn't tell anyone in the room, basically only a couple other people, and then explains between pick 12, where they selected pick 13, where they selected Jordan Davis, I believe, and pick 18, where they traded for A.J. Brown, is when they got the deal done. Pretty awesome what they were able to do with that. And that was a cool story listening to how he explained that.
Yeah, and most people aren't going to make that trade unless they have a deal done. Some would, but usually generally doesn't work out too well. So, I mean, and again, that doesn't happen if they draft Justin Jefferson. And maybe they won a Super Bowl in a different way, but they would have been very satisfied with that player, and they wouldn't have been looking to do what they did, which is carpet bomb the position and get 2 great receivers. So to me, it points out the strengths as well as, but if you're putting it in that vacuum and saying that is a bad pick, well, yes, it's a bad pick.
Well, it's hard to also unfold like, okay, if they did draft Jefferson and then they didn't have to use 2 additional first-round picks to get AJ and Devontae, what could they have done with those first picks? Maybe the team would have, I don't know.
Maybe they had Micah Parsons. I don't know, but that's the point.
Well, maybe.
That's the point. They go in a different way, but what we do know is the way they worked. That's what we do know. So you're right. In theory, they could be even better by not going in a different and drafting Micah Parsons and using that, 17th pick on something else. I forget who was around in that area. So they could have been even better, but we do know what they did worked.
It's true. Here's Curtis checking in. Curtis says, I know this is a dumb question. I don't think it is, actually. He says, because we got the ring, but ask J-Mac if it's a mistake to spend so much on the pass game ranked 27th and not the defense. It's fair.
Well, no, I don't think it's a mistake right now because that's just timing. Like most of their good defensive players are young.
Right.
that's going to shift starting next year with Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith. They're definitely going to pay Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith if he continues what he did in the second half of the season is also going to get a significant contract.
What's
So
he going to get?
the defense, well, I mean, if he plays like he did, you're talking 25, 30 million as an edge rusher. So that's coming with it. That's just timing. All the Eagles stars on offense are veteran players. So you have to pay veteran players. That's the point of hitting in the draft. So you get cost-effective guys. So Jalen's coming, Nolan's coming, 2 years, Quignon's coming, Cooper's coming. That's just timing. And by the way, when they have to pay those defensive guys, yeah, the offense is going to take some hits. They're going to have to do some stuff.
Where do you think those hits are?
Well, some might take care of themselves. Lane Johnson was doing it with an interview with somebody, and I think
same podcast on how
but those guys I saw those guys were down there.
Yeah.
And he said, if they win this year, he might call it quits after this year.
Yeah, he said that.
So, some of it'll take Dallas. We almost was gone this season because he was too expensive. He'll definitely be gone probably next season. Jahan Dotson, obviously, it doesn't matter, but as the third receiver. But if you start looking at, they're going to have
comes Darius Cooper for $1 million a year, $860,000 a year.
Yeah, you probably don't want to see that. But, Saquon's a short-term thing, 2 years. They bumped it back. So now hopefully 3 years. But the turnover is going to start on the offense when the defensive players start getting paid. So, that's a timing thing.
It's true. That's true. I can't wait to see how this team shifts. I mean, the inevitable reality is it will shift. I mean, Jalen Carter's going to make what, 36, call it?
Yeah, I mean, he's got to finish the job. He's got to have a good season. I think everybody presumes, excuse me. Oh, boy, losing the voice. Presumes he's going to have a good season. I presume he's going to have a good season and get better and better and better. But you got to do it. It's not like if he shows up and performs average or has a disappointing year from the expectations, they're just going to hand him the money. So you got to finish. It's more for Quignon, because he's got to finish over the next 2 years. You got to finish. But if they finish and continue to play like the way they're playing, it's going to be top of the market money for Jalen Carter. So whatever the defensive tackle market is at that point, with the salary cap going up, that's what he's getting. Same thing with Mitchell at corner if he continues to play at the same level. But they do have to finish. So, I mean, there are some speed bumps along the way to these big contracts.
Yep, no doubt about it. I agree with that. But Jalen at that price, Nolan at whatever price you think he's going to get. And then also Quignon probably coming another year later. Cooper DeJean, who doesn't have a fifth-year option, will come. I mean, they got some guys to play. Reed what do you think about this Reed contract? You think it's coming before the year starts?
Yeah, I'm still in the he's going to get the extension. They usually do it one player right before the season starts to generate some hype. That would most likely be, did a couple times with Jordan Mailata. That would be Reed Blankenship this year. I think, there's some thought that, he's a tougher contract than most because he was undrafted. And I think, the Eagles are probably trying to lowball him. I've said that, isn't that, that's what happened to Milton last year. The Eagles wanted to sign Milton. They were trying to sign Milton, trying to get him in a team-friendly deal. He bet on himself. It's a two-way street. Reed might do that this year. He's like, I'm on a good team. I'm the best safety. I'm the leader of the secondary. You're trying to lowball me because I'm an undrafted free agency. He might bet on himself and go make 15 somewhere else next year. So it's always a two-way street, but the Eagles want to get them done. And I think the idea that, well, Cooper's might play safety long term, and then you have Sidney, who's a third-round pick, and Drew, who's a second-round pick. I don't think what's happened this summer has convinced them that they don't need Reed Blankenship. I think it's the opposite.
Yeah. I agree. We'll see what ends up happening. John, final couple minutes on the show today, man. 15 days of camp done. Preseason game number 1, 2 joint practices done and dusted, and 1 big preseason game coming up tomorrow at 1 p.m.
I wouldn't call it big, but it's coming up.
It's coming. It's big in my world, John. I got a day of work, and I'm excited to do it. Every day is a big day for me, John.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Hype it
When
up.
what time are you going down there tomorrow?
That's a good question. I haven't really formulated that plan. Shouldn't be as crowded as shouldn't be as crowded.
No, and you're coming this way, so you shouldn't hit that Saturday shore traffic that's going to happen. Yeah, so you'll be good.
That's a good question. I don't know. We'll play.
Actually, it might be one of your easiest travel days to the link of all time tomorrow, dude. A 1 p.m. Saturday game for the preseason.
Saturday preseason game with Dorian Thompson-Robinson and Kyle McCord. Get ready. Woo!
Good night. Good night. We'll see how it happens tomorrow. It's a Darius Cooper day tomorrow, Johnny, and a Keely Ringo day tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of guys. I mean, again, if you go into it with the right mentality and you want to see the young players, you'll have fun. Montreal Johnson didn't get to play because he's was dealing with a groin injury. Now he's back. So you'll probably get a lot of Montreal Johnson, who I think is pretty exciting from a developmental standpoint. Not only Cooper, but, the Eagles have the best group of undrafted receivers in recent memory. Taylor Morin's a guy I talked about a lot. He's really impressed. Giles Jackson even. So they're better there. Offensive line, I mentioned all those young guys. Miles Hinton, the Eagles are really high on Miles Hinton. I've said that a million times. They're really high on Miles Hinton. They think he's got tremendous natural gifts, which makes sense because his dad was literally maybe the best offensive lineman in the NFL during the prime of his career. So he's got those genetics going for him. Cam Williams has got to get better. Ty Robinson's a guy everybody was excited about. He's going to get a lot of reps. He's got to, those are important for him because he might be part of the rotation. The edge, keep an eye on the edge situation. Oboe, no longer screw up his name. And then the corners, obviously. That's probably number 1. Jacorian Bennett, he's got to get comfortable quick, man.
We'll see if he can do it tomorrow. He'll get his first opportunity to show some game tape in Philly. Good to see it. Johnny Mac, your final thoughts here on this Football Friday edition. We'll catch you tomorrow for the preseason game, my friend.
Yeah, it seems quick. I'm like, for some reason, I have a Sunday feel. I need the extra day, but we'll be right back into it.
It does feel quick.
Yeah.
It does feel quick. I agree with that for sure. All right, J-Mac, good stuff today, brother. We'll catch you tomorrow for a little bit of a pregame and a little short post-game show tomorrow for the preseason game. Well done, my friend. I'll talk to you tomorrow.
All right, thanks all.
All right, thanks, Johnny Mac. There's Johnny Mac, John McMullen, joining us here on a Football Friday edition of Birds 365. Good shows this week. Good shows all week across the entire channel. Thanks, everybody, for being here. All right. Appreciate everybody. I am not going to go too long today on Zander time, probably 10 minutes. You guys had me delirious last night. Who was on me? Who was on last night? Philly Don. I shredded you last night. I don't think you were here, Philly Don, but I had to put you in a blender last night. I had to put you in a blender. All right. Eduardo says, Johnny Mac's been missing on his takes. Give that man a vacation. He can take a vacation whenever he wants. He's a private contractor. He's not an employee. Private contractor. You want to take a week off? Take a week off. You want to take a month off? Take a month off. All right. Billy Don says, what did I do? Billy Don, you were dropped in a blender, and I put the setting to max power, and I let it run for the duration of Zander time. Oh, man. Sorry, Philly Don. I had to do it to you. I had to do it to you. J-Mac hating on Cooper and Brian Zander. J-Mac's wrong on Cooper. They're going to keep him watch. You'll see. You will see. They'll keep Darius Cooper. Philly Don says, for what? I sent Bird Gang Girl her shirts, and I'm like, yo, Philly Don, shut the fuck up. I sent Bird Gang Girl 2 shirts yesterday instead of 1. I'm like, is this dude Philly Don going to continue to bitch in the chat? Is it like Xander's ever used a blender? But I've actually never had. No, I did when I was in Houston. I had one of those ninja things. I think I used it like once or twice. Realized I wasn't going to buy fucking frozen fruit and drop it in a blender every day and never used it again. Then collected dust, and I think I sold it on Facebook Marketplace when I moved out of there. I sold basically my whole damn apartment. Sold the couches, sold the bed, sold everything. I think I made like $1,500 moving out of Houston because I sold everything in my apartment. I told you guys I was broke at the time too, so that $1,500 went a long way. Went a long way in getting me out of Houston. All right. I think I made $1,500 on the couch. Some dude in Houston came over with a big ass pickup truck and just cleared out the apartment. It was hilarious. Flashbang Eagle. What the heck is that new name? Secunda says, my girl made mole with her ninja. That John was fire. Listen, Secunda, I'm surprised that I love you, Secunda, but I wasn't sure that I wasn't sure what your story was. Good to know you got a woman. Good to know you got a woman. Trenton says, J-Mac doesn't want any of our practice squad guys to turn out. He's a hater. He's not a hater. He's a realist with no desire to see anything through an objective lens, or a not objective, optimistic lens, I should say. All right. Those bags of frozen fruit aren't cheap if you're broke. Yeah, it's true. It's true, Kurt. I told you that story. I was making like $1,500 a month at the time. I think I was spending like $1,000 a month on rent. I was splitting it with my brother, so it was like 2 G's. I think it was like 1975, so it was like, I don't know, $990 or whatever it was. $992 maybe. All right, that was my $992.50 was my rent. All right. Food. We split a car. We had like a cheap ass lease deal on like a fucking Volkswagen Tiguan, I think it was. It was like $280 a month. Split that with him. Split the gas. We would try and do some things together, you know. Yeah, I didn't have much money. I think I racked up some credit card debt moving out of that place, but all good. It's all handled now. Xander was eating out of the Dollar Tree. Yeah, so there used to be a little mini mart up the street, and my indulgence would be I'd walk over there and get some of those sour straws at night because I'd be like, man, I need to fucking get something. I'm too depressed. I wasn't depressed, but, you know, you don't have a plug nickel in your pocket. Someone hacked my account. All right, then what are you doing? Izzy B, what are you laughing at? I had to kick you off the front door, the front stoop this morning. I missed the start of my second segment because of you, Izzy. Not funny. Not funny. All right, I love all you guys. I'm getting out of here. I'm getting out of here. All right. Appreciate you for doing it. Have a good day, everybody. A good weekend if I don't see you tomorrow, but I expect all of you guys to be here tomorrow. Okay? I expect all of you guys to be here tomorrow. All right, we got a preseason game number 2. Hit that like button, everybody. See you next time.
You've been listening to Birds 365. the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate, inside the locker room, and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.